OK, parfait. On y est.
All right,
Alors,
getting
nous
there.
allons
Great.
officiellement débuter ce
Let's
webinaire de
officially
lancement de
get
la campagne Carême de Partage
this webinar
2026.
started. So
Bienvenue tout
it's
le
a
monde.
launch
Merci d'être
webinar
avec
for
nous
the
aujourd'hui.
Share
Donc,
Lent
mon nom est Mayalène
campaign
Lavigne-Martel. Je suis
2026. So
coordonnatrice
welcome
des
everyone. My
campagnes de
name is
développement
Mayalène
public à Carajás
Lavigne-Martel.
Canada.
I
C'est un
am
plaisir pour moi
campaign
d'être
coordinator at
votre hôte
Development and Peace
aujourd'hui.
Carajás
On
Canada. It's a
peut
pleasure for me to be your
échanger.
host today.
Alors, je vous ai
Next
déjà dit,
slide, please.
l'interprétation
As
est
I said
disponible en
already,
français, anglais
we
et
have
portugais. J'espère que tout
interpretation
le monde a
today in
réussi à
French,
trouver
English, and
sa bonne
Portuguese. I
interprétation.
hope everyone's getting
On voulait
this
vous présenter,
in the language that they
donc
want
s'il n'y a
to
pas
be
de son, on voulait
hearing the webinar.
vous présenter en ouverture
Let's
une
just
petite
skip
vidéo
those
animée pour
slides
le
because
carême
we're
de
having
partage qui
issues with
dure
the
1
audio. We
minute, qui
wanted to
raconte
show
un peu
you a
notre
short
mission et tout
video
ça.
that
Mais
talks
je vous
about our
inviterai
mission to
à aller sur notre
Brazil,
site Internet après
but
le
I will
webinaire
just
pour voir
invite you
du
to consult the
matériel. Donc,
website
cette
after the
petite
webinar to
vidéo est à
see
votre
the
disposition
video.
pour vos
It is
présentations.
available
Donc,
on the
avant de
website. You
débuter,
can use it
je vais
for
faire
your
une
presentation. So
reconnaissance
before getting started,
territoriale. J'aimerais commencer par
land
reconnaître que le
acknowledgement, I would
Bureau
like to
national
begin
du
by
développement et
acknowledging that
paix,
the
Caritas
National
Canada,
Office
est
of
situé
Development
en
and Peace,
territoire
Caritas
autochtone,
Canada, is located
lequel
on
n'a jamais
unceded
été cédé.
Indigenous
Je
lands.
reconnais la nation
The
Kananguehaga
Kanien'kehá:ka
comme gardienne
Nation
des
is
terres et des
recognized
eaux
as the
sur lesquelles je me
custodians of
trouve
the lands
aujourd'hui.
and waters on which I am
Montréal est
today.
historiquement connu
Montréal
comme un lieu
Tiohtià:ke,
de
historically
rassemblement de
known as a
nombreuses
gathering
Premières
place
Nations
for many
et
First
aujourd'hui une
Nations.
population autochtone
Today, it
diversifiée
is home to
ainsi
a
que d'autres
diverse
peuples
population
y
of
résident.
indigenous people and other people.
Et pour continuer, on aimerait aussi vous
We
offrir
would
une
like
prière
to
d'ouverture.
offer an
Donc, je vais
opening
inviter
prayer.
Padre Dario, qui est
I
un de
will
nos invités
invite
aujourd'hui, à
Padre
faire cette prière
Dario, one
et
of our
ensuite à
guests
changer les chants.
today, to lead the
Donc, il m'a
prayer.
invité à commencer à la lire en anglais
So we're
et
going
il
to
va
start
continuer.
reading in
Antes
English.
de apresentar a oração, saudar a todos e a todas.
Before reading the prayer, I would
Queria
like to greet
explicar
everyone. I will
que
be
esta
speaking
oração
Portuguese,
encontro
and I'd like to
de
explain
perspectivas e de
that
visões.
this prayer is an
Encontro de
invitation to
narrações
meet new
de esperança.
perspectives, new
À
visions.
esquerda,
It's a
escutaremos uma parte da
story of
oração
hope. On
escrita pelo
the
Bispo
left,
João,
we
da
will
Diocese
hear part of the
de
prayer.
Mackenzie-Fosse,
It is a part of
em
the
Canadá,
prayer that was
com o
written by
título
Bishop
Onde os
Guillaume
Rios
in Canada.
Aprendem a Rezar, que nos fala da espiritualidade do diálogo
It
e da
is a prayer
irmandade
that
entre
addresses
todas as criaturas.
spirituality in a time
E à
of
direita
fraternity amongst
teremos
cultures.
a
On the
oração
right
da
hand,
resistência e da
we
fidelidade
have
de Deus
the
com as vítimas.
resistance and
Então, podemos começar, Mayalène.
loyalty prayer. So, Mayalène, we can
In
start.
the beginning was distance, and the distance was vast. Rivers ran longer than memory. The sky leaned low with stars, and winter spoke first in a voice of ice and wind. Here, before roads learned their names, before borders were drawn with ink, the land itself taught reverence. Tundra kneeling to horizon, forest breathing incense of spruce, caribou tracing ancient psalms across snow and stone.
No começo, havia a indignação, uma sensação de injustiça que não
At the
sabíamos
beginning, there was indignation, there was a feeling of injustice. We did not know how to solve the situation, but something within us was pulsating with the force of dignity and faith. We also were hearing the cry of the earth that was being pillared, stolen. We could feel still that the God of life was coming down to free its people. He was walking in front of us, inviting us to keep hope and keep the prophecy alive. So we are asking this God of life, in union with all creatures, to support faith, loyalty, resistance of the people.
Merci, Padre Dario.
Thank you, Padre Dario.
Alors,
Today, we have an agenda, so here's an overview of it. We will start with a campaign overview, and we will then move on to present our partners. We have Padre Dario, who will lead us in a presentation. We'll also have Mikaell Carvalho, who is our partner in Justicia Nos Trilhos, and Dona Gabi, who is from the community. She works with this partner, Justicia Nos Trilhos. So Dona Gabi is president of an association that is called Seeds of the Earth. After those three presentations, we'll have a short Q&A period. You will be able to write your questions in the chat box for our guests, and we will then close the webinar by looking at the resources that are available for the Share Lent campaign, and then we'll have one last closing prayer. So a campaign overview. This campaign is called On Track for Justice. It's a pun with the partner we're highlighting, Justicia Nos Trilhos. Justicia Nos Trilhos means justice on the rails. So this partner supports community that live alongside a train track that is in Brazil that's very impacted by the mining industry, industrial contamination, and industrial agriculture. So we've met with different communities. It is an example of development in pieces work. Many other partners in the world support local populations. So on top of those partners, we have special guests. The goal here is to highlight the work of development and peace throughout the world in the context of this big Share Lent campaign, which is our big fundraising campaign in Canada. So with no further ado, we will move on to our guests. I will start by introducing Padre Dario. Next slide, please. So, Padre Dario is visiting us in Canada. He was in Montreal recently. He then went to Toronto. He's currently in Saskatchewan with our colleague Mike Leblanc. They are doing a solidarity tour. He is a Combonian missionary. He was coordinator for Justicia Nos Trilhos. He's also part of the Iglesia Semineria Ecumenical Network. He's advisor to the National Conference of Bishops of Brazil and the Pan-Amazonian Ecclesial Network. So with no further ado, Padre Dario, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Mayalène. I greet you once more. Hello, everyone. For the first 10 minutes of my presentation, I will give you a bit of a systemic analysis, systemic overview of the situation, and then we will move on to my colleagues, Mikaell and Gabi, who will tell you about the reality in Brazil. In Brazil, we are experiencing something that is happening all over Latin America and in other parts of the world. It's something that also is present in the global north. However, the perspectives are very different according to the different contexts. We are faced with challenges that are violently clashing. One perspective is the extractivist perspective, which it's the image we can see on the left, and on the right, what we're seeing is an image that represents the capacity of our communities to live harmoniously in dialogue, integrating a history of relationships, trust, and respect for all the creatures of life. So those are two very different economic perspectives, and they both offer projects that are fundamentally different and that clash. Obviously, this conflict generates land disputes. Capital is very much interested in drawing profits from the land, profits in the interest of the most powerful, and in extracting natural resources.
obter profitto,
So
lucro
what
a
they're trying to do
partir
is to
disso.
extract resources and make
Esse tipo de
profits
disputa
from
cada vez
them,
mais está se transformando
and this
de
generates
modo
conflicts.
explícito em violência
Those
militarizada. Os últimos
conflicts
acontecimentos deste ano,
create
com um
militaristic
que cresce de
violence.
modo descontrolado e unilateral, representam talvez
There's
a declaração
wide growth
mais
of
evidente
imperialist
que as
dynamics,
elites
and one
deste
very
mundo
obvious
se
example
deram
of this
conta
is
que não
that
tem mais
the
mundo para
elites
todo mundo,
of the
dizemos
world
em
is
português. Não
realizing
tem mais
that we no
suficientes
longer have a
recursos
world
para
where
todos.
everyone
E,
can
portanto, essa
fit,
disputa
that we no longer
precisa
have
se tornar
resources for everyone.
legitimamente, politicamente violenta. Nos
And
preocupa
that's why they're
muito a
resorting
abertura
to
desse tempo nesta
violence
linha.
to try to keep
E o Canadá é
maintain control
exatamente
over the resources. So
um
this
dos
is something that
protagonistas
truly
desse
worries
modelo
us.
extrativista
Canada
e
is one of the
neocolonial.
protagonists
Ao
of
mesmo
this
tempo, é
extractivist
grande
model,
protagonista de
colonial
solidariedade e de
extractivism.
aliança com as comunidades.
Canada
Agradecemos
is
muito
also a
o
protagonist
desenvolvimento Paz
in
por estar do lado
solidarity
certo
and
da
alliances
história.
with communities.
Mas também, e aqui
And
podemos
we
passar com os
are
slides,
grateful
queria
to
mostrar
development
a
and peace for
vocês
being on the
a
right side of
presença de
history.
tantas
But also,
companhias
please move on to the
minerárias
next slide.
canadenses
I would
em nosso
like
país,
to show
ameaçando
you
efetivamente o equilíbrio
how
e os
many
planos, os
Canadian
projetos que nossas comunidades querem.
extractivist companies
Aqui embaixo à
are
esquerda
present in our
podem ver
country, and
alguns
those
dos mais comuns
companies
impactos
threaten
que estas empresas,
our
mas também
lifestyles, our
empresas de
livelihoods.
outros
So here are
países do
some
mundo
of the most common
e também empresas
consequences
brasileiras
of
estão
mining
provocando
companies,
em nossos
the threats
territórios,
they
ameaçando
poses.
nossas comunidades. Mas vamos dar mais um passo, porque eu quero fazer um apelo à importância
I
dessa
would
aliança
like to
que
talk
está se
about the
criando
importance
entre o Sul e o
of
Norte global.
this alliance
Uma das possibilidades
between the
que
South and the
fortalece
global
a
North, global
resistência,
South and global
que daqui a
North.
pouco escutaremos pela palavra de Mikaell e de Dona Gabi, é esta aliança
We'll
de
hear
apoio político,
about this alliance in the next
social, solidário,
presentation with Mikael,
através da
but there
advocacy,
is
quer dizer, da
social,
pressão
political
política,
support
tem possibilidades de transformações,
that is
tanto na lei
taking
canadense,
form.
podemos voltar um pouco,
And
como na lei
we
internacional, e aqui temos só alguns exemplos.
can make a difference at the
O
level of
princípio
Canadian law and
da
international
devida
law.
diligência,
Here are a
ou
few
a importância de
examples
monitorar
of
e exigir acordos
a legal
bilaterais e
framework that call for
multilaterais
due
que
diligence,
respeitem os direitos
the
humanos e
importance
da
of having
natureza,
bilateral and
o
multilateral
acordo
agreements that
sobre
respect human rights
empresas e direitos
and the
humanos, que
environment.
está sendo coordenado há uma dezena de anos pela ONU, o acesso à justiça
We
e à
have been
reparação,
working on a binding
e
treaty for the
finalmente
past
o
10 years with the
direito
United
ao
Nations on business
consentimento
and
livre,
human rights.
prévio e
And
informado
finally,
que todas as
the
comunidades
right
originárias
to
deveriam
free,
poder
prior, and
ter.
informed
Então,
consent
temos uma
that
perspectiva
all
importante
indigenous
que desafia a
native
nossa aliança
communities
entre o Sul e
should
o Norte
have
global
access
também
to.
para exigir que a
So those are
política e a
examples
economia
of
que estão
the
habitando nossos
products
territórios
of those
respeitem estes
South-North
princípios.
alliances.
E por último, para
It's
fechar,
important to put
passando os
pressure on our
slides,
countries in
queria
the
falar
South
da
so that
igreja.
they respect those principles.
Esta foto é
And
importante porque
I'd also
mostra a
like to talk
continuidade
about the
entre o
church. This
pensamento
picture
de
is
Papa
important because it
Francisco
shows that there is
e de Papa
continuity
Leão.
between the
Papa
thinking, the
Francisco,
approach
na
of
Laudato
Pope
Si,
Francis and
na
Pope Leon.
encíclica Laudato Si,
Pope
diz que não é
Francis, with
mais
the Laudato Si,
suficiente colocar pequenos
states
reparos
that it is
aos
no longer
conflitos e à violência
sufficient
que se está
to do
instalando no mundo,
small
mas
repairs in
se
conflicts
torna
and the violence we're seeing
urgente
in the world.
uma verdadeira
He says
revolução
it
cultural.
is
Quer dizer,
urgent
uma mudança de
to
modelo,
undertake
uma
a
mudança
cultural
sistêmica,
revolution. We
que,
need a
como
new
dizia no
model,
começo,
a
precisa
renewed
depender muito
systemic
pela
change. And as I
intuição
said
e
at the
pelas
beginning,
perspectivas das
we
comunidades em
must
seus
learn
territórios.
with intuition,
Até nas
drawing
Nações
inspiration
Unidas,
from the community's
a
perspectives in their
igreja,
own
em
territories,
geral,
even
as
on,
igrejas,
in
a
terms of the United
espiritualidade,
Nations, the
a
church,
perspectiva
churches,
religiosa da vida,
spirituality,
são percebidas
the religious
como
perspective on life
elemento
are
de transformação
perceived
decisivo
as
pela fé, pela cultura
transformative
e pela arte.
actors
Podemos
that can
mobilizar
have an impact with faith,
pessoal e
culture, art. So we
comunitariamente
can
a
mobilize
transformação, a
people,
mudança. Não
communities,
é um
and
acaso
we
que
can
a ONU
experience
tenha
change. It's
instituído
not a
esse
coincidence
chamado The Global Ethical Stocktake, o balanço ético
that
global,
we are now
processo
looking
internacional
at
de
global ethical
congregação
stock
das
stake.
inspirações de
There's
fé e de
an
cultura
international
que queiram se
process with different
comprometer em
congregations,
defesa da justiça
expressions
climática.
of faith,
Temos uma
cultures
grande
that want
responsabilidade
to get
como líder
involved and work
religioso
on climate
para
justice. So we have
o
a
enfrentamento da
large
crise ambiental e
responsibility as
climática
members
atual.
of religious
Para
communities to
concluir,
face
a
the
igreja é
climate
importante
crisis, the
também porque é
environmental crisis.
sujeito
The church has an important role
multiescalar,
to play here.
presente em diferentes níveis da sociedade.
It
Estamos nos
is,
territórios
we are
onde
facing
as
a
lutas, os
poly
conflitos,
crisis.
as
We
violações são
are
sofridas e
on
onde a igreja
territories
pode
where
ser um aliado,
conflicts and human rights
samaritano.
violations
Mas
are
estamos
ongoing.
também
People are
com a
suffering, and the church
autoridade
can
e a
be
voz.
an ally,
Nesta
a
outra
good
foto
Samaritan.
vocês podem
We
ver os
also work
cardeais,
with the
presidentes
authorities,
das
and
conferências
on the next
episcopais de América Latina,
picture,
África e Ásia,
you
apresentando à
see
ONU um
the
documento das
uh,
igrejas do Sul global.
cardinals
Portanto, também a nossa voz
that are on
institucional pode
episcopal
alcançar, com a autoridade de quem
alliances,
está no território,
and
pode alcançar
we can use
quem
our
toma as
institutional
decisões.
voice
É com
to
esse desafio que deixo
impact
então agora a palavra a quem me seguirá
change
para
and be
escutar de modo
heard
mais
by
concreto
decision makers.
histórias de resistência e de esperança.
I'm now going to
Merci
invite
beaucoup, Padre
my
Dario.
colleagues to talk about
Donc,
faith and
on va,
hope.
comme tu l'as dit, donner la parole
As you said, we're going
au
to
prochain
let the
invité.
next speakers
Donc,
come up.
notre
So the next
invité
guest
vient, c'est de notre partenaire Justitia
is
Nostrios. J'ai eu
our
la
partner.
chance
He's
et le
with our
grand
partner, Justicia
privilège de
Nutrios. I'll
rencontrer
had
Mikaell
the great
et
honor
Dona
and
Gabi
privilege
Silva
to meet with
lors
them and to meet
de
with
mon
Dabi
voyage en octobre pour
during a
pouvoir
trip
recueillir
in
du matériel pour
last
faire cette
October
campagne.
to
Donc,
Brazil. So I
j'ai
was
été
collecting
épatée par
material
le
for this
travail
campaign.
de
I
ces
was just
partenaires, par les gens que j'ai pu rencontrer.
astounded by their
Donc,
work, by the
Mikaell est
people
un
I met with.
communicateur populaire,
Mikael
il est le
is a
coordinateur des
popular
projets et des
communicator, and
relations
he's
pour
project and relations
Justitia
coordinator
Nostrios.
at Justicia
Il œuvre depuis
Nustridios.
10 ans pour
He
la
has been
défense des
working for
populations
10
et des
years to
territoires
defend people in
affectés par
territories
l'exploitation
affected
minière
by the
et
mining and
maritime
agribusiness
industrielle dans le
chain
delta du
in
Mahan. Donc, je vais lui
Maranhão.
laisser le soin de présenter
So I'm
le
going to let
travail de son
Mikael
organisation.
introduce the
À toi,
work of
Mikaell.
his organization. Mikael?
Obrigado, Mayalène,
Thank you, Mayalène.
pela apresentação. Uma boa tarde
Thank
a
you for your
todas e todos que estão
presentation.
aqui
Good
pela
afternoon,
live.
everyone.
Boa tarde ao Dário também, aí, nosso amigo querido. E a
Good
Gabi, que está aqui
afternoon to
comigo
people
no
in
bate-papo.
Canada. Good afternoon
Eu
to
quero
Padre
desde já
Dario, our dear
agradecer
friend, and good
também quem está
afternoon to
fazendo a
Dabi,
tradução, que
who's
nos ajuda aí,
sitting
nos
with me. I
aproxima
would
nesse
like
processo
to
de
thank the people
comunicação,
who
né?
are doing the
Facilita esse
interpretation, who
troca de
are helping
informações,
us
então
understand
agradecer
each
também.
other. They're
E
helping
agradecer DP
with the
pelo
communication,
convite, né, de
facilitating
estar aqui podendo
communication.
apresentar e falar um pouco sobre
I
o
would
trabalho da
also like
Justiça
to
nos
thank
Trilhos.
Development and Peace for this
A
invitation.
Justiça nos
I
Trilhos é uma
am glad
organização
to
que
be here to talk
nasceu
about
em
this On
2007,
Track
né?
for
E ela
Justice
nasceu
project. So,
inspirada
On
pelo
Track for
carisma
Justice, Justicia
comboniano.
no Trilhos,
Inclusive, o Padre Dário, que está aqui
Justice on
conosco, ele é
Rails
fundador da
was
Justiça nos Trilhos,
founded in
e firmemente se apoiando
2007.
aí no
Padre
nosso
Dario is the
fundador.
founder
Nossa
of
organização cresce
this
nesse espírito
project.
comboniano aí de trabalho social junto a comunidades que são afetadas pela cadeia da mineração.
Organization
E
is
atualmente
built
também
on a
pela
community
cadeia do
spirit, a
agronegócio.
solidarity
A
spirit.
nossa missão é
We
fortalecer essas
currently
comunidades ao
work
longo e do
with
Carajás, né,
agribusiness, and our
denunciando a
mission
violência que
is
elas
to
sofrem por
strengthen
empreendimentos
a
predatórios,
network of
buscar também a
actors in the
responsabilização
city of
dos atores
Carajás,
públicos
along
e
the Carajás
privados
corridor,
e também atuar na prevenção para que essas
to
violações não voltem a
seek
ocorrer. E também,
accountability with the
atualmente,
public
né,
and private
não
actors, and we
podemos deixar de
also want to do
trabalhar
prevention
no
work.
enfrentamento a crises climáticas também, que agora
We
também afetam nossas
also
comunidades,
want
a partir
to
de um
work
debate sobre
on the
transição
climate
energética,
crisis, which is
sobre mudança
directly
do clima, né,
impacting our
mudança da
communities. So
vegetação
we
também nessas comunidades
are looking into
periféricas. Esse é um
energetic
pouco da
transition,
nossa missão.
reforesting.
Temos
So
aqui
this is
2
globally
escritórios de
our
trabalho,
mission.
né, na
We
cidade
have
de
two
Açailândia, onde eu estou, onde eu
offices.
vivo, e outro escritório
One
também
of
na
the
capital
offices is
São
in
Luís, isso para
Açailândia,
poder
where I'm
atuar
located currently, and the other
próximo
one is in the
de
capital,
aproximadamente 20
São Luís.
comunidades que nós acompanhamos mais diretamente. mais afetadas
We
diretamente
work
pela
with
ferrovia são mais de
20
100
different
comunidades. Então, a
communities.
ferrovia tem
We
892 quilômetros de
have
extensão. Ela sai da Serra de Carajás,
impact
né,
on
do
more than
caminho da
100
Vale,
communities through the
minério de
work
ferro,
we do.
e vai até o Porto de Itaqui, ali Ponta da Madeira também, em São Luís. Então, é uma ferrovia muito
The
grande,
mineral that
por
is
onde passa um dos
extracted
maiores
in a
empreendimentos de ferro
region
do mundo,
is
com
ore,
330 vagões e cerca
and
de
it is
3,3
transported by
quilômetros
one
de
of the
extensão. Então,
longest
realmente é um trem
uh,
que, por onde
railway in the
passa,
world.
a gente
So it's
costuma dizer que ele
192
leva a riqueza,
kilometers.
que é o bem natural que nós temos, que é ali o minério. Ele retira isso da nossa
So
terra
this train
e deixa
leaves with
poluição
the
na saída das
resources,
nossas
the wealth
carnes,
from
atropelamento dos
our
nossos animais,
lands, and what it leaves
atropelamento também
behind
das
is
pessoas. Então, é
contamination,
um trem que leva a riqueza
injured
e deixa
animals,
destruição. Isso é o que a
injured
gente costuma
humans. So the
dizer
train
sobre
it
esse
takes
modelo, né,
away
de
the
exploração mineral
wealth
que tem,
and
não só na
leaves
nossa região, mas no
destruction.
Brasil como um todo, né? Acho que pode passar esse
And
slide,
this is
por favor.
not something that is only happening in our region, it
Para
also
poder
happens
também
elsewhere in
atuar, é
Brazil.
importante, né? Poder atuar nessas comunidades, a justiça nos teve que buscar
In order
também
to
aprimorar um
work
pouco
with the different
o seu
communities we
trabalho e criar
support,
equipes de trabalho, né? E aí é
we've
quando a gente também
had
encontra
to
parceiros como o Desenvolvimento em
create work
Paz e
teams.
outros grupos de parceiros também
We
internacionais que
have
ajudaram a montar
different
equipes de
partners,
trabalho
such
para
as
poder
Development and
atender
Peace and other
as
international
demandas que essas
organizations that have
comunidades
helped
estão
us
nos solicitando. Então, a
create
gente tem aí
teams
um
that
trabalho
can
de um eixo
support
jurídico
the
para trabalhar
communities and
também
help them
questões
meet their
judiciais, de
needs.
litígio, de defesa
So we
dessas
work
pessoas,
with
né? De fazer
legal
denúncias
teams,
protocolar, ações
advocacy
judiciais contra empresas, contra
workers,
governos,
we file
né? E assim a gente tem também
grievances,
procurado
complaints,
defender esses defensores de direitos humanos da natureza.
we
Nós também temos um
have
eixo de
lawsuits
trabalho
against
que é
certain
voltado para a
companies, and
comunicação, que
we advocate
trabalha
with the
na
government to
divulgação
defend human
das
rights
nossas
for the
atividades, das nossas
communities.
ações, mas
We
também
also do
trabalha no processo
communication work.
formativo de criar
We
comunicadores
promote
e
our
comunicadoras
activities,
populares nos
and we
territórios, para que também
train
dentro das comunidades elas
people.
próprias
We
possam
train
produzir seu material de comunicação, as
communicators
suas campanhas
so
de divulgação, as
that
suas denúncias e consiga também expor
the
isso
members
através
themselves
da
of the
sua própria
communities
forma de
can work on their
comunicar.
own campaigns
A gente tem um eixo que para
and
nós é
share
o nosso
the
principal eixo de
information around
trabalho, que a
them.
gente chama de
We
fortalecimento comunitário, formada por equipe
also
de educadores,
work
educadores
on community
populares, que
building.
essa equipe é a
So
primeira
we
que
have a
chega na
team of
comunidade para
popular
identificar os problemas,
educators.
identificar
They're the
também
first
a
people
cultura daquela
we send in
comunidade, o
communities.
orgulho
So
daquela
they
comunidade,
identify the
para assim poder
problem,
desenvolver atividades
they
contrárias
analyze the
a essas
culture of
pessoas.
the
Foi assim que a gente
community,
conheceu
and
a
then
Gabi,
they
através dessa
develop
equipe, e aí junto trabalhamos
activities
no fortalecimento
that
da comunidade dela, da organização comunitária,
can
para que a comunidade
contribute
possa se
to
mobilizar e
strengthen
lutar pelos seus
the
direitos.
local community
No mais
work.
recente também, a gente criou um
Recently,
eixo de trabalho de
we've
alternativas econômicas à mineração e ao agronegócio, porque para nós a mineração não serve, o agronegócio não
created
serve, então a gente também precisaria fortalecer formas de economia que possam ser o contraponto, né, a esse modelo mineral. Então, esse eixo de alternativas econômicas trabalha com
recently we've
agroecologia, trabalha
organized
com um grupo de geração de renda de
resistance
bordado
to the
e outras confecções. Então, a gente vai
railway
tentando
economic projects. So
fomentar
we
grupos
want to
de
develop
geração de
alternative
economia dentro das
economies. So we've worked with
comunidades, para que elas também tenham
agroecology,
renda própria e
alternatives
não
to
se
mining,
dependam do processo
local
ligado à
handicraft. So
mineração
the
e ao
idea is to
agronegócio.
promote
Eu acho que também
autonomy
vale destacar
and
que a parceria com o
to make sure
Desenvolvimento em
that
Paz
we not
ajudou
only
a
depend
estruturar
on
esse eixo de alternativas
one
econômicas dentro
economic
das
activity,
distintivas,
but
e
have
aí
a
foi a nossa
diversity
primeira
of
parceria
options.
forte,
So the
assim, para criar um
collaboration with
centro de
development and peace
agroecologia
has
aqui na
really
cidade de
helped us. It
Caçadante,
was our
que hoje a
first
gente
big
usa também
partnership
para dar
that's
subsídios às
allowed us to
comunidades no
create an
trabalho
ecological
de
center
produção
that
agroecológica.
we've also
Acho
used
que
to support
pode
other
passar
communities.
esse slide. Aí é mais para a gente poder mensurar, né, a descrição um pouco do trabalho, dos impactos que nós
We could
sofremos, né,
describe our
devido à
work
passagem
and
do
to the
trem, né,
impacts
transportado
that
por ele, né,
we
para
that
dizer que não
occur
só
with the train
a
of the
passagem
mineral
da
transport
ferrovia que
trains comes
prejudica
by.
essas
It's not
comunidades,
just them
mas
coming
junto
by
com,
and the
esse empreendimento
actual
vem outros.
rails
Vem
that cause
povos que
damage to the
emissão de
community, but there are other
ferrosa,
problems as
produção de
well.
aço,
There's the
tem
productions
outros tipos de empresas
of
de energia e também
types of
vários outros
other
empreendimentos em torno da
materials such
mineração
as
que
steel
também estão prejudicando essas
and they
comunidades.
use up
E a
the
gente tem
energy and
enfrentado
the
isso
and energy
no dia a
and
dia.
the
Pode
electricity comes
passar,
in.
por favor.
And this causes damage within the communities. If we move on to the next slide.
Certo. Eu gostaria de destacar aqui, porque de todos os
I would
trabalhos,
like
vários trabalhos que nós desenvolvemos também,
to
nós
point
temos um
out
grupo
the work
de
that we
trabalho,
do.
principalmente as
There is
mulheres, os
also
jovens, e
the
uma
public that
comunidade
is
específica, eu
involved in the
gostaria de
work.
destacar que é a comunidade de Piquiá
The
de
people
Baixo.
that
Eu vou trazer ela como
there is the
destaque,
Pica de Bajo
porque realmente
community,
surge
which I
também
wanted
nos
to
Dias Sul,
explain a
né?
little bit
Essa
about this community.
comunidade,
This is
ela
where we
ela
have
era fortemente afetada
this
pelo
is
polo
a
industrial,
community
onde
sense of
foi, como eu
justice
acabei
that
de
has been
falar. Então, tinha cinco
very much
empresas de indústria, né, de
affected by
produção
the
ferroviária
industrial
que
activities and by the
poluíram a água da
railroad.
comunidade, o solo,
And
a
that
água.
so that there
E
is
essa
in
comunidade se
this people, there's a
mobilizou
group of young
para poder
that
se
has
reassentar
caused the
longe
pollution
desse
of the
polo industrial,
water, and the
né? E aí,
community
dentro desse
came
processo
back to
também de trabalho para essa
be able to
comunidade, para poder
combat
fortalecer a
these
comunidade, a gente
industrial
também fez um
effects.
trabalho junto à juventude, né,
And
aos
this
jovens dessa
community,
comunidade, e criamos esse grupo chamado Jovens de Nós
we
Popular
work with the
Saúde,
young
que hoje
people.
eles se batizaram, tem um
There's
nome
a group
próprio que
who
chama
is
agora Coletivo
called
Andadas
the
Cardeal, em
uh,
homenagem também
environmental
ao senhor
surveillance,
Edvar, que é o
young
presidente da Associação de
surveillors,
Moradores e Moradoras de Piquiá,
and
que
which they have
infelizmente faleceu também por
to
problemas
give
pulmonares, provocado
homage to
justamente pela
Mr.
poluição
Edward, who is a
que
person
sofreu
who
durante
died
anos, mas era
due
um
to
senhor muito
problems with
energido,
his
educado,
lungs
e foi o primeiro
based
aí a travar
due to
a
the
desmatamento da
industrial
comunidade.
pollution in the
E esse
area.
grupo de jovens, eles fazem o
And this was the
monitoramento da
person who
qualidade do
started
ar
up all
em
of the
Piquiá de Baixo, em
struggle.
Piquiá de Cima e em
And
outros
these
bairros
young
vizinhos
people carry out
da
environmental
cidade, para
surveillance
poder denunciar
not
o quanto
only
esse
in
polo
their
industrial, o quanto a
area, but
poluição emitida
also
por
in the
essas
regions
empresas
around them,
prejudica a
to be able
vida
to
das pessoas, contamina
record
o
to
ar
which
que essas pessoas
point
respiram. Então, é
industrial pollution is
muito importante para nós,
contaminating
um trabalho
the
muito bom que
and
tem feito pela
impacting on the
juventude.
life of these
Também
people is very
apostamos e
important. It's a
acreditamos que
very
a
beautiful work that
juventude
is
tem esse
carried out
gás,
with
essa
the young
energia
with
para
youth,
travar
and we're
essas lutas e
depending on the
produzir
youth
também
people. They have
conteúdo
the
de
energy
pesquisa, de
and
estudos, de
they have the
negócio, para
fuel. They
provar as
have to be
violações que
able
eles
to
sofrem.
fight
Então,
against
isso eu queria fazer esse
the
destaque, né? E aqui vocês
industrial
conseguem já
violence
ver
and the
dois panoramas
contamination.
totalmente
Here we can also
diferentes, né?
see
Assim, na esquerda a gente vê aqui
two
umas
completely
plantas já com
different.
flores,
At the
digamos assim,
left,
meio cinza, né? A gente consegue
we
ver aqui
have
o rio e ao fundo
the
a empresa
the
siderúrgica, né? Essa
flowers that
própria,
have been dirty
hoje ela
with
se
the
chama VB, mas na época era
mineral.
usando
What
Nordeste, né?
I
Hoje é
bet
a
we said
Siderúrgica
the
Brasil.
and
E no lado
it
direito
goes on with
tem
the
a
industry, and
Flávia,
at the
a Ana,
right
que Mayalène
we
gostou
have
muito de
Radia
estar
and
aqui
Galia.
presente, tem toda a família aqui
The
que
young
gosta, é o
show that
Piquiá
we
da
have
Frente,
interviewed,
que é para onde a
and
comunidade de Piquiá de Baixo
the
foi
family
reassentada.
at the
É
right
um bairro
of
novo,
Piquia de
longe da
Conquista.
poluição que eles sofreram, né,
This
as
is a
consequências, e é um
district
bairro
in the
construído
region,
pela comunidade.
another
A
one
comunidade
that was
desenvolveu,
built
né,
by the
a
community,
comunidade
and the
correu atrás dos
community
fundos para que esse projeto
designed
fosse construído,
and carried out the
colocou
project
as empresas
completely
siderúrgicas para pagar,
so that they
né,
could be able
colocou
to
o governo
build
para pagar
this
com recursos da
community,
cidade
and they
junto com a empresa
paid for the
VAR.
government
É uma
paid for
mobilização
had
que
to
durou
pay for this.
9 anos,
So this
9
was
anos
a
para se
mobilization
chegar
that
ao
took more
Piquiá da
than
Frente. Então,
nine
essa
years
comunidade
of
sofreu a
struggle
violação.
so that we
Justificou a
could come to
violação,
these
levou a
results.
associação de
And so the
moradores para poder
community
ter
were
um órgão que pudesse levar
violated,
essa
and
luta à frente. Então,
and
nossa
they were
associação de moradores
identified
se
it and
organizou, se
started to fight
mobilizou,
against it
e
along
agregou
you with the
parceiros como os
government
combonianos,
departments,
enquanto igreja, enquanto
and
juventude, agregou
they
parceiros como a Justiça
found
nos Trilhos, Família,
partners
Desenvolvimento e Paz,
like the
que
Combonis,
acreditaram nessa luta por essas
missionaries,
ideias,
and
e depois de 9 anos conseguiram agora
Justiças
estar num
Notrílios
bairro longe da
organization, and so
poluição
that they started to
e
carry out their struggle against the companies,
com muita
and now they're
dignidade, com muita
far away
dignidade.
from all the pollution, and they live in a much calmer, much more serene
Desculpa,
conditions.
gente, é porque Piquiá é meio.
Piquia.
Esse é Piquiá de Baixo. O choro não é de tristeza, não, é de felicidade do processo. É, Piquiá de Baixo, essa é a comunidade Piquiá de Baixo, né? Onde eu também
And so I
nasci,
was
né?
crying because of
Meus
how
meus
happy
tios
I am.
viveram durante
So I was
épocas
born in the region of
turbulências
Pica de
e
Bajo,
agricultores e agricultoras, né? Essa
and there's
comunidade
the
tinha da
families
sua
and the
principal
different
também
generations
fonte de
of
renda a
people who
agricultura no início,
worked the earth
mas isso
there, and the
foi
agriculture
modificado, né?
was the
Essa
main
comunidade ela surge na
source
década de 60,
of revenue. But
mas
as
a
this
partir da década de
change,
80, final de 80,
and the small communities
surge as primeiras siderurgias e
that
aí a
were born in
siderurgia
the
vira
60s,
totalmente
but
uma
as of
indústria para essa
the
comunidade.
80s,
A gente consegue ver
we
aí
saw the first
ao fundo
mining
da comunidade
company They came in and installed themselves in Pica de Baixo, and they built a bridge where we can see the railroad and this circle where people live. And we see the community are right in the middle of all of these industrial operations. There was also a mining station where they deposited the minerals for to process them for industrial processing, and this community was very strongly impacted by the pollution. And so we had various different types of problems with pulmonary health, and there's eczemas, skin problems, and the children were not able to have a fully healthy life. They were sick all the time, and they would keep getting colds, and they were always tired. And for a long time, there were a lot of problems that were recorded, and so that their whole way of living was recovered because the ground wasn't fertile as it was before the pollution set in. And so we'd also see in the air would become gray because we could see what we were, the air that we were right. So there was a lot of struggle. And so that, and this is what happened afterwards. This is the Pique da Conquista. It says that because of the conquest, because it was a conquest. We have a number of families that are settled in here, about 1,300 people who now live far away from the pollution with streets that have been well designed with clean water and all the necessary plumbing so that they can live with dignity and so that they can be able to get to the market to sell their produce. And there are health units and that serve the public, the population, which is what necessary for a true lifestyle. And so that we also see the colors with other that have just started with these cultures, and we'll be able to plant fruits, trees so that we will be able to eat. And here we see the green in the walls because it's very important for us. And we see the families today that are happy. The children can play in the streets. And they can grow with dignity, which is very important. This is an example of the type of work that we do with our community. And we try and reproduce this type of work within the communities where, for example, Gabi lives. And we see a picture of the tree planting activities. We planted 100 trees, and this area that was done by the young people. And we'll continue doing this because beyond the conquest that we have created, we want to create memory with affection for these places. And to end, I would just like to say that I thank you. We thank development and peace to be able to believe in our struggles and to have understood the problems of the community and to have helped us. I think that after waiting for 9 years for the construction for the district, be able to carry it out properly, it's a long time. And I think that development and peace also put resources into us, and now we'll be able to harvest all of what we were able to produce together. Thank you for that.
Un beau témoignage. Merci beaucoup. On sent
Thank you
que
very
la route a
much.
été longue, mais
We
elle a
know that it was a long struggle, but that it was fruitful. And so that now we have Pique da Conquista, which is they've been moved far away from the industrial pollution. And in the campaign, you'll be able to read the history of these families, but there's another story which is up with our next, with Dona Gabi, and we're going further over to the dirt roads, the places that are hard to access for the big trucks that carry eucalyptus wood and that destroy the roads. And I was very touched when I saw the difficulty of being able to circulate on these roads. So our next guest comes from a community from Misco. Her name is Zeneide Roque Moraes Prates, but they call her Dona Gabi. She presides the Seeds of the Earth Women's Association, and she works to coordinate and mobilize her community on issues of social and environmental justice in the face of industrial agriculture and the impacts of the Carajás Railway, which goes through her community. So without any pass the floor right over to our next guest, Dona Gabi.
Boa tarde a todas e todos.
Good afternoon to all of you.
Dizendo que sou muito
I would like to start by saying that I'm very grateful to having been invited to participate and to talk and tell you about the reality of our territory and the region where we live. And I wanted to start with a song, but very quickly, with some land, with a field to show you what we do. And this song, and this things, I came from the body of my mother. She gave me the good seeds that nourished my body. I'm a plant that comes from a good seed. So this is the beginning of this poem, with this poem that I wanted to start with. I'm going to give you my testimony and say that territory comes from sharing the people, but through the struggle of people around everything without having any opportunity to find work and to be able to live well. And this is where we started with our struggle. And I wanted to say that at the beginning of all of this, the church was always at our sides. The church was a partner in our struggle for territory and for housing where we could live with dignity. Today, there are 5 areas, 5 regions that are housed. Which is a community that is going to struggle for the legalization of the land. So we live in this territory today, but we like to say that we need the land to live, because we are the land. We were born, we grew up, so by seeing our parents who worked to produce what we needed from the land without destroying it. They shared this with us, and that's what they taught us, how we could work with the land and not be aggressive to it. And everybody lived well in that time. And we consumed healthy food. We were able to wash ourselves in the rivers and in the lakes with healthy water. And we had land that was good, but that is not our reality anymore. The images that we see today, this is my daughter, this is an area that before had people living on it. The place where we live was destroyed,
de lotes, ou seja, de espaços que
with,
vivem a
with
comunidade
deforestation, except
ainda
for
dentro dos seus
certain
próprios
small
lotes, né?
areas,
Foi dividido
certain
na
regions where
época
the community
de ocupação.
was able to
Então,
preserve it because there
essas
was
pessoas que
water
ainda resistem dentro do
that was
território
present, and
e
the
vivem
people that are
dentro dos
still
seus lotes,
resisting in this
plantando,
territory and that
colhendo e
live
ali
in on the land
tentando,
with
resistindo,
plantations and with
né?
their harvests,
Resistindo e resistindo dessa
and they
prática,
continue resisting.
vem sofrendo também grandes agressões. Como, por exemplo, o ar, por exemplo, que
They
nós
have also the
respiramos.
segregation.
Hoje nós dormimos e nós acordamos com os
Yesterday,
aviões, com os drones, com
we
os
and
grandes
we see
equipamentos
that there are planes
lançando
and drones that we work with,
próximo das nossas residências,
and
próximo das nossas plantações, e nós nos
that
sentimos
spread toxic substances
violentados,
near where we
né?
live
Assim
and near
como
where we
também a
are.
Mãe Terra. Porque a cada dia que
So
passa
we feel
é
that
mais
it's
morte,
a type of
cada dia que
violence,
passa é mais
so that
conflito, porque
we're
quando a
not there
gente
every day,
fala de um lote, é
and
uma área, uma extensão
the
de
past.
área de
So when we
terra
talk
que está
about
sendo
our
entregue para o
plots, it's an
agronegócio.
extension of
Sem
land,
contar que nós já somos
and
impactados
it is turned
diretamente
over to the
pela
major
grande
industry,
ferrovia,
and we already
nós
see the
temos uma
impact
duplicação
with
às
what is
margens da nossa
happening to the
comunidade.
land.
Então a gente já sofre com
We
esse
see a
grande impacto. E aí
duplication
vem, como bem Mikael
of problems in
mencionou,
the community. We know that there's something that, as
um
Mikael
empreendimento,
mentioned,
ele traz outro empreendimento, ele traz outros empreendimentos para dentro desses
one
territórios,
company
desses
brings in
territórios.
another,
Então, hoje nós temos
and that are
aí
moving closer to our
a
territory. So
duplicação da ferrovia, nós
nowadays,
temos os grandes empreendimentos do
there are two
agronegócio, e
railroads,
com isso tudo fica mais difícil
a
para quem vive
major
próximo, né,
agro
desses grandes,
industry that and it
digamos
becomes very
que,
difficult for all the people that
monstros,
live
né? Porque
close
para nós
to
é
these
isso,
big
o
monsters. That's what
significado
we
é
have to
esse.
call them. That's
Então,
what they are
surge
to
aí em
us,
2018 a
and this is
ideia
what
de
they
nós
mean to us.
termos as mulheres
And
à frente da
2018,
luta, mais ainda porque as mulheres já
we
viviam à frente da
we
luta junto
wanted to
com os homens,
employ
mas
women
vocês tinham
even
uma
more because they
necessidade
were already
maior
at the
das
front line
mulheres fazerem
with the
parte
men, but
dessa
they have
frente,
bigger
e
needs,
aí nós encontramos
so that
junto ao, ao nossos parceiros do
and
Justiça
so
no
that
Trilho essa
we're
força,
working along
né?
with our
E
partners
como Mikael também
that
mencionou, esse fortalecimento que vivemos
on
nos
Justicia no
territórios
Trillos, and so
chegou
that we
até
be
nós a
able
pedido
to
nosso,
take
né?
advantage of everything that
E
comes from
aí
the
hoje
territory,
nós
so that
somos gratos
this work
por
came
nós
to us, and
conseguirmos,
so we
junto com
are
esse
grateful
fortalecimento,
because together
trazer
with these
mulheres de lutas,
partners, we were able to
mulheres que
defend
hoje
ourselves,
são
women
empoderadas,
that are
e aí
fighting
com
and
essa
that now
parceria a
have
gente consegue
are
articular um número
empowered
maior de
through these
mulheres e
partnerships,
consegue
which
se
allows us
articular
to
dentro dos
involve more
territórios
women
e
that are
fazer uma
very
política de defesa
involved in
à
the
própria
health
terra,
of
né? À
and a
própria
certain
natureza.
defense policy
Então, hoje nós
to
somos
protect our
considerados, nós
land.
nos
And so
sentimos
that today
mulheres
we're considering,
defensoras,
we
né?
feel that
Tanto
we
da
are
natureza
women
como das
defenders,
nossas próprias
defenders of
vidas e
nature
aí
and
da,
the
da sua
environment,
vida
like our
que
own
vivem e
lives,
existem dentro dos
and
nossos
also for the
territórios, pois a
lives
cada
of
dia que
people who
passa, nós
already
junto com os nossos
live within
parceiros, que
our
são
territories
vários,
every
né?
day
Mas
with
que
our
estão junto
partners, and
conosco,
we
o
have
Justiça nos
several.
Trilhos, os padres
They have been with
combonianos.
us,
Então a gente vive
and so that those that are
fazendo
justiça no
denúncias,
trilhos, in
a
other
gente
words,
vive
justice on the rails, and that we
fazendo todo
can
tipo de denúncia que a
be
gente
able to
consegue
denounce,
entender e ver que
and
vai
so that
nos
we're able to
beneficiar
denounce what all of that we can, so
positivamente.
that we
Nem
can have as
sempre
much
a gente
understanding to put
consegue
everything that could have a
alcançar
possible
quando vê o
benefit on
resultado,
us.
mas
We
a
we
gente
haven't
não
reached our the
fica
best results
parada.
yet, but on
Então, as
the other
mulheres
hand,
hoje dentro dos
we haven't
territórios,
stopped. This doesn't stop us,
elas
and the
têm
women within
essa
our
força. Então,
territory
a Associação das
have
Mulheres Sementes da Terra, ela hoje,
this
ela tem
association of
essa
women,
força
this of
e
seeds of
ela
the
busca
earth,
a cada dia,
has
né?
this has has a certain
Buscar os
strength, and we
direitos.
look every
A
day
gente consegue dizer
to
que
struggle
nós
for our own rights, so that we
não
are
vamos
able to say
conseguir parar nesses grandes empreendimentos, mas a gente tenta fazer com que
that we
eles
don't
nos enxerguem,
are not
que
able
a
to
gente não
resist
consegue nos
completely
ver
these big
fora
industry,
do
but
nosso
we want them to
território,
at least
né?
understand us.
Fora
we can't imagine ourselves out of our own territory or far away from our lives and our culture and our principles.
Então, é muito triste
so that we are still we defend it and we are still growing, and it's very sad to talk about what is happening there. And what because this is really in violation of our rights, and so that it's good to be able to share this with other people who listen to us and to participate in this meeting today. So it's very positive. I would like to say that the women, even though sometimes they suffer violence in their territory, they are able to come up with inexplicable strength to be able to look for solutions that we look for with a proper intuition to find that we are not able to always do what we want to, but we have a certain satisfaction because while we're looking, we find people who have an inexplicable strength and they can help us to continue with our struggle, and they help us to stay on our territory. Every water course, every animal, every tree are of great interest to us because we understand that without what it gives to us with nature, those who will come after us will not have anything if we don't carry out this daily struggle. So every day we have to find the strength along with our partners. So the people that we find, people that we live in, and we find the strength to stay standing. We have threats. We have people that are directly and indirectly threatened, but that doesn't muzzle us. It doesn't keep us quiet. So in our space, we are learning about environmental rights. I'm asking what we need to do so that these rights become legalized, so that if we talk about environment and nature, we're talking about people. We're part of this environment, so that looking for solutions for human beings, what we're looking for, they're also for the environment because we're part of the environment. All I can do is really thank Mayalène. I had the pleasure of receiving her in our house, and she was able to have a close look at our reality. She saw that how difficult it is to get to our, even if it's not very long during the rainy season, we can't do this in a dignified fashion. So because of the deforestation, it becomes very difficult to move around, and so that this is looking for so that we could live without all of what we do not desire.
Merci beaucoup, Dona Gabi, pour
Thank
ce
you
beau
very
témoignage.
much, Dona Gabi, for
Donc,
this wonderful
j'ai
testimony.
été beaucoup touchée quand j'ai rencontré
I was
Dona
very
Gabi. Vous
touched
allez
when
voir
I
si vous
met
n'avez
Dona
pas déjà mis
Gabi.
la main sur notre matériel de campagne,
If
mais
you don't
dans
have
notre
our
mini
campaign
magazine,
material yet,
il
but
y a
you
une
see in the
citation
mini
de Dona
magazine,
Gabi et le titre
there's
de
a quote
l'article
from her, and the
Résister pour
title
exister, c'est elle qui
is
me l'a inspiré
to
puisque
struggle to
c'est le
exist,
discours qu'elle m'a
because this is
dit quand
what
je suis arrivée. Donc,
that
toutes les
was what she
communautés qui
spoke to me
résistent
when
pour
I arrived
continuer
there. So
d'exister
the
sur leur territoire,
communities
qui
that
sont
continue
accompagnés par Justice a
to
Nostrillos
exist
pour
on
faire
this
valoir
and
leurs
that
droits.
are
Donc, on va
accompanied by
maintenant
Justice
procéder à
Los
une
Trillos.
période de
And
questions
now
et
we will
réponses.
open
Donc,
up a
pour poser
period
vos
for
questions, il
questions.
y a
If you have a
un
question,
Q&A. Donc, si vous allez
there is
dans les trois petits
a
dots,
Q&A button.
More, et
If
vous
you
allez
go under
voir une
the
petite
three
fenêtre que vous pouvez
dots,
ouvrir et
and
vous
you'll
pouvez
see
poser
an
des
open, and
questions
you
dans
can
le
ask
chat.
questions
Donc, nous, on
also in the
pourra
chat.
transférer ces questions à
And
nos
we'll
invités. Donc,
transfer
si
the
vous avez des
questions to
questions pour
our
Padre
guests.
Dario, pour
So if you have
Dona
any
Gabi, pour
questions for
Mikaell,
Padre
ils
Dario
sont là pour
or for
répondre
Mikaell or
à nos
Dona
questions.
Gabi, they're here to
Alors,
answer
je vais
your
juste regarder
questions.
s'il y a des petites
So let me
questions qui
take a look and
rentrent.
see what questions are coming in.
Ah, on me dit que Padre Dario répond
Je
directement
sais de Padre
dans
Dario
le chat.
is
Mais c'est
answering
correct.
directly in the chat, that's okay.
Mais peut-être, si vous voulez, on a
But
eu des
perhaps if
questions sur,
we've had
par
questions
exemple, les compagnies minières
about the mining
autour
companies
de Piquia, quel
around Piquia,
minerai est
what
extrait?
is the
Peut-être une
mineral
petite
that's
question de
extracted?
clarification
Perhaps a little bit of clarification about that type of thing.
Ok, se é sobre piquear. Ok. Ah, em
If the question
piquear,
about Piquia, I can
desculpa.
answer.
Nós
In
tivemos
Piquia,
durante um bom tempo, eu falo um bom tempo porque já atualmente já
for
essa
a
realidade
fairly
mudou,
long
mas
time, I
do
say it's
final
a
da
very
década
good
de
long time
80
because the reality
até mais ou menos
has
2015,
changed recently.
nós tivemos
But
atuando
from the
em
end
praticamente
of the 80s up until about
empresas
2015,
siderúrgicas que produzem ferro-gusa.
there were
E a
5
matéria-prima para o ferro-gusa,
companies.
ela é o minério de ferro. Então, a empresa Vale SA,
There
mineradora
were
Vale,
the
extraía o
iron
minério de
mineral.
ferro da Serra de
And so they
Carajás, no
were
estado do
carrying out
Pará,
the mineral
transportava ele até a
from the
cidade de
Carajás
Acaiá, deixava uma
mountain,
parte, um pouco do
and they
minério em Açailândia,
transported
que
this
aí era utilizado
Acaya,
por essas empresas
and they
siderúrgicas
would leave a
para a
little bit
produção de
in this city,
siderurgia.
and then these companies,
Atualmente,
these siderurgy
temos
companies,
apenas uma
but
empresa
they made
siderúrgica
use of this
funcionando,
mineral.
produzindo ferro-gusa, e temos
At
agora
this time,
empresas
there
de
was only
cimento e temos
one
uma empresa
company
que
that's
é de
still in the
aciaria, que é
sun,
uma empresa que
and there's
produz
a cement
aço.
company
Já não produz mais
and
só
a
o ferro-gusa, ela
steel
produz já lâminas de
makers.
aço, que é
And not
uma forma de
only, so
beneficiar ainda
it's not
mais o
only
material
exploitation
para
of
exportação.
iron minerals
Então,
anymore,
atualmente,
but
hoje
so they
no
were
Plying
able
temos
to
uma empresa
be able to make it more,
siderúrgica que
take
produz
more advantage
ferro-gusa,
of what
outra
they
empresa
export.
muito
So
grande,
there's the
bastante
siderurgy
grande, que produz
with
aço,
the iron,
e
and another
empresas
one
que
that
produzem
produces
cimento.
steel.
São que fica ali na
And so
comunidade
this, and there's
atualmente,
also, as I
mais
said, a cement
esse posto de minério da
producer.
Vale,
This is
que é
what
o
is
ferro
present in the
colocado,
community
minério de ferro.
at this time. And this company, they're the people that
Merci,
are
Mikael.
extracting
Je vois qu'il y a
ferrous
une
mineral.
question qui s'adresse à Dona
Are there
Gabi.
questions for Dona
Dona
Gabi?
Gabi, on
Dona
questionne
Gabi
pourquoi
were
la
asking
terre a été
why
déforestée autour des
what was the
communautés.
cause of the deforestation
Et
around these communities?
oui, je ne sais pas si c'est un mot déforesté, mais
Def-
pourquoi on a enlevé toute la végétation, comment ça se passe,
why was the
et aussi
vegetation
que fait
destroyed? How would
l'organisme
happen?
Semences de la Terre.
And what is Seeds of the Earth as an organization?
Então, toda essa área exposta aí, né, como o
So
Mayalène mostrou, é uma área
Mayalène
é um
mentioned,
território
it's
que
a
foi
zone
ocupado e conquistado, né, com a luta do
that
povo
was
pela reforma agrária,
occupied,
entre outras
conquered
entidades que apoiou. Só
with
que,
and with the
igual na
agrarian
fala do Padre
reform,
Dario no início, ele
so
colocou
that
bem uma questão
so
sobre
that as Father
esse
Dario
left and
said at the
direita,
beginning,
né,
I would
onde
like to mention that there was
o povo que
was
se
left and
diz
right.
de uma esquerda,
The people
eles apoiam
who say
uma
that they
ideologia,
belong to
e
the
os de
left,
direita apoiam outra.
they
Então,
have a
vamos
biological
sugerir que
idea,
nós
whereas the
somos
others have a different
de
view
esquerda, né?
on
Nós
the
estamos
right.
aí na
So
luta
let's say
por
we're
uma
from the
reforma
left,
agrária, por
we're
conquista
there
de
that we
terra,
want
e nós
a
conquistamos
agrarian
essa
reform.
terra, né? E nós conquistamos esse território.
We're the people who
Mas
conquered
junto dessa conquista
this
não
territory, this
chegou
land,
as
but we
políticas
did.
públicas,
But with
não
this
chegou
conquest,
uma estrada de
politics,
qualidade, não
proper
chegou
policy
um
didn't
posto de
follow.
saúde, não chegou
We
uma
didn't have
escola.
quality
E esse
roads or
povo que
health
conquistou esse
clinics
território
or schools.
teve que
So the
fazer sua
people
própria
who
luta para
occupied this
ter
territory
essas políticas
had
dentro
to
do
carry out their
território,
own
né? Então,
struggle
ele também não
so
recebeu
that they would have this policies
benefício
within the community. So they
fizesse
didn't
ele
were able to benefit
trabalhar nessa terra da forma que ele
as
almejou.
such as they would be
Então,
able to
o pequeno
continue working
agricultor,
in
ele
this
vai
land.
fazer a sua
And that
roça
was what they
no
were
topo,
looking for.
ele vai plantar para a sua
So
subsistência, mas ele vai
so
ficar só
that
na quina, né?
people can be
Então,
able
quando
to
chega
plant things for the
grande
subsistence,
empreendimento
but so
próximo
that
desse
when
assentamento, eles
the
fazem o
big
quê? Eles
companies
fazem
move in
tipo
and
uma
they what
violação e alicia, né? Esses pequenos agricultores, eles vão lá, eles oferecem uma quantia de dinheiro para eles poderem arrendar ou até mesmo
So
vender
small farmers are given little sums of money, and farmers who don't have access to public policies, who are more vulnerable, poorer, who have difficult family situations, for example, who are living in precarity, end up by ceding their lands, and they either rent or sell what is theirs. And the person who buys it
ou eucalipto, ou seja lá qual
undertakes
outra cultura.
deforestation
Então, é por
and
isso que
then
hoje o território ele se
cultivates
comunica dessa forma,
soya,
né? Porque
eucalyptus,
parte
or
das
other
pessoas que
resources. And that
conseguiram
is how the land
passarem por
is
essa
gradually
violação,
destroyed.
né? E cederem. Então, aqueles que permanecem é
There
porque
are
têm conhecimento,
people
porque
who
têm
end up giving
afetividade
up
com a
their lands.
terra,
Those
é
who
porque
stay
têm
are the ones
a
who have more
certeza
knowledge,
que arrendar ou
who
vender
have
não é o
an
certo, ou seja, o
effective
ideal a
relationship
fazer.
with the land, and they know
Sobre essa
deeply
indiscriminação.
that to
Vamos ver
sell
se a
or
gente está
to
bem,
rent
Isabel.
out the land is not
Então,
the right thing to do.
respondendo sobre a associação Mulheres Semente da Terra, ela
About
surge
the
dentro dos 8, né,
association,
com a
Seeds of
necessidade
the
de
Earth,
violências, né, causadas dentro dos
it was
territórios, ou
born in
seja, da região toda.
2018
A gente percebe
because
isso,
of the
tem
violence
mobilizações que a
that
gente faz,
we
que as
were
mulheres
experiencing
estão
in
em
the region.
massa.
People started
Então, isso
noticing,
foi
analyzing what was
observado em
happening, and they started
2018,
mobilizing, women
numa
especially.
mobilização que a
So
gente
we
fez no
created
dia
the
8 de
association in
março, e essa
2018
mobilização durou
after a
16 dias no
mobilization
meio da
on March
estrada,
8th.
e as
The
mulheres estavam
mobilization
em
lasted
massa, com os seus
16
meninos, com os seus
days.
cachorros.
We were on the
Então, a gente
road.
percebeu que as
Women were
mulheres
there
não
with their
tinham vez
children, their
de voz
dogs.
dentro dos espaços das
And
comunidades.
we
Então, a
noticed
gente
that women had no
observou e
voice
buscou, junto aos
within the
nossos
community
parceiros,
spaces. So,
fortalecer essas mulheres,
with our
fazer com que elas
partners,
entendessem qual
we
verdadeiramente o lugar
decided to
delas, de
amplify women's
fala,
voice
de
to
posicionamento, mas
build their
principalmente de
capacity
busca
and help them
por
take up
políticas
space.
públicas voltadas para as mulheres, pois as mulheres elas
We
faziam os exames
especially
preventivos
focused
dentro de uma
on
sala de
public
aula, né? Sem
policies
nenhum
targeting
tipo de
women, public
indenização,
policies
né?
for
Exposta ali, né?
women.
Então, assim, isso
For
assim,
example, for
horrível para
medical
uma mulher,
exams,
né? Não
women would
que
see a
dentro de uma
doctor
sala de aula não
in
tenha a
uh,
segurança, tem, mas o
school
conforto não é o mesmo,
spaces
né? A
or in public
segurança, a
spaces, and they were
dignidade
very
dela, ela
exposed.
não se
There were many
sentia à
risks
vontade, né? Tá ali. Então, com
associated.
todas essas
They didn't have,
observações, a
access
gente
to
sentou, né?
dignity,
E a
conditions
gente,
for
junto
dignity that you
com
have in a medical exam room.
Justiça nos Trilhos, a
So we
Larissa,
got
a
together
Ju,
with
Valdênia, são
Justicia nos
mulheres
Trilhos,
que
with
são
Larissa,
ligadas à
Antenia,
Justiça nos
women
Trilhos,
who
marcou, fez um cronograma e a partir
are
daí a gente
pillars of the
começou a
organization.
se reunir em roda
And
de
we
conversa e
started
hoje nós
organizing
somos
meetings.
essa associação, né, fortemente,
Today,
que nós
we have
buscamos
a formal
por todas
association. We are
essas
strong,
demandas que surgem dentro dos nossos territórios, né? Então,
and
o
we
principal
are
objetivo
fighting
é buscar
for
políticas
our
públicas
land.
para as mulheres,
Our
mas isso
main
não quer
goal
dizer que
is
nós
to
também
support
não
public
lute por
policies for
outras
women,
causas que
but that
surgirem
does
dentro dos
not
territórios.
mean that we are not fighting for other causes
Obrigada.
that are important
So I'm
in
gonna
our
ask
area.
3 questions in English now, so you can make note and see who would like to answer to which. So the first question is, what are the limitations of community-based peace building in this situation? Another question, how will our study of and understanding of the call of the Conference of Bishops in the South, presented at the United Nations at COP30, help us be stronger allies and supporters of your struggle? And a last question, was there any discussion about environmental impacts when the mines were opened? I am surprised at how close the mine was located to the community. So I guess this is the PICIA for Michael. So I'll
Eu
let you answer.
posso responder as primeiras duas, tentar.
I can answer the
Depois
first
os
two
outros me
questions.
ajudam,
I'm going to
naturalmente,
try,
Mikael
and
e
then
Dona
my
Gabi.
colleagues will help me
Com
with the
respeito
last
às
question.
pequenas
Mikael,
comunidades,
Gabi.
promovendo caminhos de
With
paz,
regards to the small
a maior
communities
limitação é o
and the ways
isolamento,
to build
a
peace,
fragilidade
limitation is
intencionalmente
isolation,
é provocada
vulnerability, fragility,
para que nenhuma comunidade tenha a força de reagir.
Because
As empresas e o Estado
the communities were built
têm
in,
interesse
it
em
was
manter
intentionally
separadas as vítimas
designed
de sistema
to
tão grande.
separate the
E a
victims.
maior estratégia da rede Justiça nos Trilhos, que hoje é uma
The
organização de
communities were
direitos
built
humanos,
as
é
part of a
exatamente
very important
conectar
strategy that
estas comunidades para que
seeks to
compreendam
disconnect
que
communities.
são vítimas de um mesmo
And
sistema e que
the
juntas
strategy of our
podem, de
organization is to
fato,
help connect
engrossar,
the communities so that they
levantar a sua
understand that they're
voz
victims of one
e
same
fazer maior
system
pressão
and that
institucional.
together they
É,
can
uma
amplify their
vantagem
voices,
do
speak out,
movimento das
and
comunidades
exert
em construir
institutional
processos de paz
pressure.
é que elas
It's the benefit of a
conseguiram
community
criar
movement. And
alianças
if we're trying to build
horizontalmente entre
peace,
as vítimas,
we need
mas
to create
também
horizontal
transversalmente,
alliances amongst
envolvendo
victims,
diversas
but
instituições de
also
poder até
transversal
nível
alliances
internacional. O
involving
senhor Edvar
power
foi à
institutions at the
Comissão Interamericana
international
dos Direitos
level.
Humanos.
Mr. Itzval
Outros líderes
went to
de
the
PQA foram
Inter-American
ao
Commission for
Conselho
Human
de
Rights.
Direitos Humanos da ONU
Other
em Genebra.
leaders
Então, diversos
also
níveis de ação, exatamente para afirmar que a paz se
went out
constrói a
at
partir
the
dos
international
territórios,
level.
mas
They,
que
reached out to the
depois
United
possível
Nations.
escalar este
All
processo
this
em
to say
outros
that peace is
níveis.
built
Neste
from the ground,
sentido,
from the
brevemente,
territory, but
a
it
igreja
can,
também é ator que pode
our work
agir
can
para
move on to
ajudar
broader
nisso.
spaces. The
Por isso,
church
o
is also an
documento
important
das
actor
igrejas do
that can
Sul
help
global
build
é
peace,
muito importante
which
porque mostra
is
que aquilo
why
que se vive em
the global
Brasil ou na
South
América
Church is
Latina
very important, and
não
our
é muito
documents are important. It
diferente de
shows
experiências
that
vividas
what
na
we're
África ou na Ásia
experiencing in
e que,
Brazil, Latin America,
portanto,
is not very
de
different
novo,
from what's
unindo
happening in
a voz do
Africa
Sul
or in
global,
Asia.
temos mais
And
força para
when we
reivindicar,
unite
inclusive do ponto de
our
vista
voices in
eclesial,
the global
com a
South, we are
autoridade de uma
stronger.
igreja que,
Even
de
from an
modo muito
ecclesial point of view,
autêntico,
we
escolheu o seu lugar, que é o lugar das vítimas.
we have authority as a church. We chose where we stand, and where we stand is on the side of victims. I think that Padre Dario gave a very good answer to the first two questions.
De modo geral, ela tem papel importante
Yes, I
na
confirm that the
da
church has
vida
played a very important
comunitária,
part in
na vida
preserving community
da
life,
natureza. Então, assim, estar presente
in
com os
protecting the
pés, né? A gente costuma dizer
environment,
assim,
nature.
estar presente
The church is very
com
much
os pés
present.
descalços, que precisa sentir o solo que pisa para poder
They are
reconhecer o valor que ele tem.
firmly grounded
Então, é
in
preciso
this
que a igreja
land,
esteja com esses pés
and
descalços,
they
seja onde
truly
for,
see the
seja aqui no
value
Brasil, seja no
of the
Canadá, seja
land.
na África,
We can
para que
see that the
também possa
church,
se reconhecer
in
e se
Brazil and
conectar
Canada
com
and
essa terra,
Africa,
porque é só
have
assim que
to
a gente consegue
recognize
também estender a mão,
the
consegue
importance
ter
of the land,
empatia
has
pelo outro
to
e compreender a
reconnect
luta do outro e
to the
por que aquela
land,
pessoa,
so
aquela
that we
comunidade
can
quer o seu território preservado.
unite,
Então a gente espera que a
reach
igreja tenha
out
essa
to other
compreensão, porque
communities,
aí
and
onde ela
support
estiver,
their
qualquer
struggles.
canto desse mundo que ela esteja, ela vai também estar ao
We
lado dessas pessoas que
expect
estão
the
lutando por
church
seus
to have this
direitos, por sua
understanding no matter
vida,
where they are in
tanto a
the world,
natureza
because no
como seus
matter
modos de vida também,
where
diariamente.
the church
Essa é
is in
uma
the world,
questão. E
it
sobre a
can help
pergunta
people protect their
relacionada
lifestyles,
aos empreendimentos,
protect
à
nature.
mineração
That's
próximo
one
dessas
answer.
comunidades, se houve
With
consulta,
regards
né,
to
nesse
mining
sentido, a
activities
gente tem que
in
resgatar que
communities
alguns
and
acordos
public
internacionais, como a
consultations,
própria Convenção
there
169
are certain
da Organização
international
Internacional do
agreements, for
Trabalho, elas não
example,
são
the
tão antigas, elas são
169
recentes. Então,
Convention
o
for
próprio
the
direito à
World
consulta
Labor
prévia,
Organization. They're
livre e
not very
informada, ele é uma
old.
coisa ainda
The
recente, né?
right to
Então, vários
public
desses
consultation,
empreendimentos
for
aqui que a
example,
gente
that's
citou,
very
tanto do setor
recent
industrial, que é mais
agreement. So
próximo ao
many
mineral
of
que
those
ocorre em
industrial
Carajás, mas que ocorre em Minas
initiatives,
Gerais
a
também, em
lot
outros
of
cantos
the mining
do
activity
Brasil,
that we
eles são
see in other
empreendimentos que,
parts of
quando
Brazil,
começaram a se instalar, a gente estava numa época até
started in
propositalmente de
Carajás
ditadura militar, né?
when
Muitas
the
empresas se instalaram na
companies
época de ditadura militar. Então, nem sequer
started
discussão
settling
sobre
here. It was
como
right
esses
after the
empreendimentos iriam ajudar essas
military
pessoas foi por muito
dictatorship. So
tempo.
there were no
Era uma época
consultations,
de
no
represália
discussions.
mesmo, então tinha uma
It was
perspectiva
forbidden
de expansão industrial no
to
Brasil
talk
nessa
about it.
época de ditadura
Brazil was
militar que a gente
undergoing a
vivenciou
period
de
of a
64 a
strong
87
repression.
por
There
aí,
was industrial
88. Então,
expansion during
nesse
the
período do percurso surgiu vários
military
exemplos, como a gente
dictatorship.
falou.
At the time,
A estrada de ferro Carajás era inaugurada em 85, ainda dentro da época da
many
ditadura militar.
companies
O polo
were
industrial que
born,
se instalou
were
em
created.
Açailândia, ele Isso está no final da década de 80,
In
87
Ceilândia, for
ali, então
example, the
entre esse
industrial
período
pole
militar. Então, nessa
started at
época
the end of the
também não se
80s,
tinha
at
abertura para qualquer
the
diálogo.
end of the
Então, essas comunidades
military
foram,
dictatorship.
primeiro,
So there
enganadas,
was
dizendo que esses
no
empreendimentos
openness to
iriam
dialogue, really. Communities
propiciar
were
empregos,
tricked.
desenvolvimento, ia trazer
We
escola,
were
educação,
told
saúde, qualidade para
that,
essas comunidades. E a gente sabe
mining
bem que a
activities were
realidade
going
hoje,
to
né,
bring
não chegou
education,
saúde,
health,
pelo contrário, tem a
social
saúde prejudicada,
programs, but
fragiliza as
it's
políticas públicas, então a
absolutely not what
educação
we
também
see
é
right
fragilizada
now.
porque
And
não
on the
chega política
opposite, on the
pública para
contrary,
estradas que
people's
são, que
health
deveriam
is
propiciar uma
more fragile
locomoção
now.
de forma
And public
confortável,
policies do
rápida,
not
elas
reach
são totalmente
the regions
desestruturadas
where
para
there
essas
is
cidades têm
mining
dificuldade
activity.
também de sair, acabam ficando
Transportation,
isoladas onde estão e acabam depois
you
tendo
know,
que sair
the
para não
companies
voltar mais para o
structure
seu território.
transportation
Então,
in a way that
geralmente o
communities end up
desenvolvimento chega com uma promessa
isolated from
falsa
one another.
e
It's
depois
part of
vira
an
realmente
intentional
só
strategy.
problemas
So
socioambientais. Então, a
we
gente tem que ter
see
realidade também
that the
assim, por trás desses
promises
recortes
made at the
também históricos
beginning
do
of this
país, porque faz a gente
industrial
entender
development
também como
were
que esses
false
empreendimentos se instalaram
promises. And
próximo a
I'm
essas
telling you about
comunidades
this
e não
history
teve
because it helps
necessariamente
us
como
understand
haver
why
o direito
those
dessas comunidades de
activities
dizer não,
were set up
talvez, de
so
negar
close
esses
to the
empreendimentos
villages, to the
fosse
communities.
respeitado na época, porque isso não era nem permitido. As
They
manifestações também
did not
eram
allow
controladas,
communities
eram
to
muito difíceis de se
refuse
viver
their
também no Brasil.
implantation. It wasn't even
Então,
allowed
fazer esse
to
resgate histórico.
protest. We
O que
were
não é
under the
muito
control
diferente do que a gente vê
of,
crescer hoje, por exemplo, no empreendimento
the
que é essas
political
palavras. Tem
dictatorship.
algumas leis
So it's important
mais
to have
fortes
some
que ajudam
form of
ainda a proteger essas
historical
comunidades,
perspective.
mas ainda o
We
capital
currently
dessas
have
empresas, o
laws
poder
that help
econômico e
protect
político delas ainda
communities, but the
prevalece em muitas
economic
ocasiões
power
ao direito dessas
that those
comunidades. A
companies
gente ainda sofre um
hold
pouco com isso
is
hoje também.
tremendous and
Exatamente.
prevails
Com
over
relação
human rights.
à igreja
Can
nos
I add
territórios,
something?
eu só queria mencionar
Yes,
assim
with
que a
regards to
igreja
the
dentro dos
church,
territórios ela é de
I would
fundamental
also like
importância,
to
né?
add that the
Porque
church
como eu
played
havia
a
já mencionado na minha
fundamental
fala,
role,
desde o início de
as was
ocupação, os
already
padres
mentioned,
eles sempre
since the
estiveram
beginning of the
presentes, né? Dando
occupation.
força, ali
The
auxiliando no que
priests
fosse
were
preciso, que
always
eles
here
podiam
to give
estar
us
auxiliando. Então,
strength,
dizer
to
assim,
help
que
us.
o trabalho desses padres, enquanto padre, mas
The work
principalmente enquanto
of
seres humanos dentro dos territórios,
the
auxiliando esse
priests
povo
was very
que tanto
important
precisa, é
as priests,
fundamental.
but also
Então,
as
hoje,
human beings. They
na nossa
really
região aqui
helped
do
people.
Oriente,
I think they
nós
play an
somos
essential role.
cinco
And in
assentamentos, como eu já
our
falei,
area,
né? Em todos
we
esses
have five
assentamentos se
settlements,
encontra uma
as I was
capelinha, né? Uma
saying, and
igrejinha
in
que
each
acontece a
settlement,
celebração,
we have small
mas agora,
churches where we can
recentemente, né? E
hold
essa
celebrations.
celebração, ou seja,
More
esses
recently,
encontros, essa amparação que nós temos da
the
igreja,
celebrations
ela
we hold, the
ela é
meetings
feita
we
pelos padres
organize
combonianos, né? Então,
are
assim, recentemente a gente recebeu
led
uma notícia muito
by
boa, né? Que eu acho
uh,
importante falar também,
the priests.
que nós
We
também
recently
vamos
had
deixar de
bad
ser
news,
assistidos
heard by
mensalmente,
bad
né? O ano
news.
que vem por esses padres, por essa família
We
comboniana,
were
que
told
isso nos dói
that
muito
next
mesmo. E
week we
Padre Dario
will
sabe do que eu
no
estou falando,
longer be receiving
né?
help from the
Então, assim,
Comboni
dizer que nós somos
family.
muito,
Padre
muito
Dario
mesmo
knows what I'm
grata,
talking
né?
about.
A esses padres que
So
passaram,
we are
né? E que
so
estiveram junto conosco
grateful
durante todo esse
to all the
processo de luta e
priests that
conquista, né? E
have
busca por
supported
política, busca
us
por
over time,
vitórias, aí que nós almejávamos conquistar,
in this,
que eles
they've accompanied
deixaram,
us
vão
in this
deixar
fight.
grande ensinamento, né? E que a gente vai sentir grande falta mesmo da família comboniana dentro dos nossos territórios, porque a gente
We've
sabe qual o
learned
papel
from
deles,
their
né?
presence,
Qual o
and the
papel que
Comboni
eles
family
realmente faziam
is
dentro
going
dos
to
nossos
be
territórios.
sorely
Não era
missed.
só de um
We
padre,
recognize the importance
mas
of
de um
the role
ser
they
humano que
played
via
on our
a nossa
territory.
realidade, que
Beyond,
realmente fazia a leitura do
being
mundo e que
priests, that
realmente
they were
usavam
human
os
beings
termos.
that were living alongside community members who were
Thank
really
you.
walking this
I
land.
see the time passing, so I'm going to ask another bundle of questions, and we have maybe 10 minutes to answer those, and then we're going to be closing our webinar with the resources and the ending prayer. But here are a few questions. Maybe Padre Dario started to answer them in the chat, but I'll ask them here. Can someone clarify how many Canadian mining companies, are operating in Brazil? How have resource development practices and agrarian reform in your area improved since Jair Bolsonaro's departure from presidency? What is the fear that Brazil could return to the same kind of regime? Another one, has the current Brazilian government made any improvements over the last one? And about the train, can you give an estimate of how much ore passes along the railway in a day? So I'll pass it over to you.
Uau, uma parte, posso responder. Sobre a questão, I forgot the first one, Mayalène. But,
Canadian mining companies.
yeah.
Answer the question about the mining companies in Brazil. I don't have exact numbers. There's a lot of them, Canadian companies, Brasil and Minas Gerais. And so there's a part that we call it Canada because there was the first Canadian companies that came in. So that what I mentioned, those that I mentioned, are the biggest ones, the ones that have the biggest impact. Some of these companies, como Veloson, are not on operations yet. They are threatening to install themselves in one of the most critical areas, one of the most delicate parts of the territory, which is in another part of the Amazonia. And so we really need your help to try and control the actions of Canadian mining companies, but also to be able to block the new processes of people who want to come in. In terms of the government, it's clear we're not completely satisfied with the current government, inclusive of the COP30 in Brazil. There was a lot of criticism, and it's clear that if we compare to Bolsonaro's government, we made some great steps forward. We're still very concerned because in October we have elections again. And of course, there's the risk that the extreme right will take over again, so that the best results so far have been the a decrease in deforestation. The Ministry of the Environment is taking a very serious job to try and be able to restore. And so this is a long-term work that we have to support. There's also recognition of indigenous territory and rights. And people, and to ensure that indigenous people have the right to access their own territory. This is part of what it's not as strong as we would like, but it's good as to how much ore there is. Perhaps Mikaell has more precise, or Gabi be able to complete my response because they have better idea. Thank you. I think that
do Jair Messias Bolsonaro, a gente teve desmonte
também. There were 4 years under Bolsonaro, and they were very important. The organizations that he controlled.
Também fazem ações de combate ao desmatamento, a garimpos ilegais.
The ministry wasn't doing anything against deforestation since another situation that were existing. So when the government changed, we were able to recuperate some of these organizations and the medium to long-term figures that were defended, and they're coming back in a more appropriate fashion. And so there's one significant, the big problem that still exists for us, is that there's an economic policy in Brazil which is turned towards exploration, exportation of goods, iron ore, gold, but above all iron ore, there's also grain, wheat, maize. This type of exportation is still very important in Brazil. So that when the government changed,
domina
the
governos
policies,
como o do Lula hoje, né? Então, esse tipo de política ainda é
or
prejudicial a
even
todas
with
essas
Lula,
comunidades
there's
que nós
still the
citamos durante a
companies are
nossa fala
still
nessa tarde,
very
porque
predominant.
é dessas
So these
comunidades que
policies are
são
still very
extraído minério,
problematic for
que
our
é
communities.
derrubada a
So
floresta para poder plantar soja,
they're the
então elas
ones
acabam também
who
sofrendo com essa
are
política, seja num governo
where
mais à
they
direita, seja num
rob their
governo mais à
land and
esquerda,
deforest
porque a política
and
econômica do
eliminate
Brasil
the
ainda está
forest in
atrelada
order to
a
plant
esse tipo
soil.
de
So
exploração. Isso é prejudicial
so
de todo
this the
modo, assim, ela só se
policies,
acentua
whether it be
em
on
governos mais
government being the
à
left or right,
direita.
this type
Acho
of
que eu queria pontuar
exportation
isso.
is
E
prejudicial.
sobre a
And
exportação
so that,
do
but
minério,
see, it is
aí eu
better than
posso
with a
fazer um
right-wing
recorte, é
government.
o que eu posso
But in
fazer.
terms of
O
the
minério que é
exportation
exportado
of
de
iron
Carajás, de
ore,
Carajás, que
what
passa
I
pelo
can
estado do
say
Pará até
is
o Maranhão,
that
né?
the
Que foi
iron
exportado
ore
principalmente para a China, mas também
that
para os Estados
is
Unidos,
exported
e outros países também
is
da Europa.
sent
A
to
gente tem
China and the
cerca
United
de
States and
150 a
some
200,
European countries, so that we
150
have
a 200 milhões de toneladas exportadas aí por
so
ano,
that
né?
we have
Mais ou menos são
the
esse número aí.
millions
Eu
of
acho que de
tons of ore that
2024 para
are
2025
exported.
foi 176
And
milhões de
so
toneladas exportadas desde Carajás. Isso
in,
só de minério
in
de ferro.
2025, it was
Ou seja, para cada
176
composição que a gente tem
tons
do
of
trem,
iron
vem
ore. Talk about all
3,3
of the
quilômetros de
other
extensão. São 330
strain is
vagones. Então,
3.2
cada vez que um trem sai da Serra de Carajás, da mina de
kilometers up
Carajás,
to
e vai
more,
até o
more of
porto do Maranhão,
300
são mais de 40 milhões de
cars.
toneladas
And
exportadas
so
por cada
that
composição.
workers, and
Então, é
so they
muito
go to
minério sendo
Madrid. So there's
exportado. Por
many
dia,
tons. So it's a
diariamente,
lot
e
of
tem
iron
motorizações
ore that's
passando aqui a cada
exported
20
on a
minutos para as
daily basis.
comunidades, né?
And there are
Seja ele
trains
carregado, né, assim,
that
com um
every
vagão
20
grande,
minutes,
seja ele
sometimes
voltando
you
vazio para
go
poder
through
ser
with
carregado novamente.
ore,
Só para esse
or
momento.
that are
Então, mais
coming
ou menos
back
esse fluxo de
empty,
cada
and then
20
they're
minutos de um
refilled
trem
again so
desse,
that they can then
que é mais de
export
3 quilômetros de
the ore. And
distância
so
até
that's the
essas
type of flow
comunidades.
there is.
E sem
So,
falar, daí é isso, né?
trains that are more
Futuramente,
than
lá,
3 kilometers long that
isso
keep
vem
going through
junto
the
com
communities.
essa passagem
It's
diariamente.
noisy. There's a lot of dust. There are accidents. And so that
So
this is
before
something
we
that
go
happens
into
on a
our
daily basis.
resources, I would like to offer all of our guests one last question. So if you could answer in 1 minute or a few sentences, what does, for all the Canadians that are here today listening, that are helping the development in peace, either with our campaigns, with giving money to the organization, to supporting us, supporting the work of development in peace so we can support partners in the global south. Do you have a message or what would be your final words you would like to address to us today? So I'll let you go when you're ready.
Começo eu porque a palavra de Mikaell e de Dona Gabi é mais forte, é bom que fique por último. A minha mensagem
What my Dona
sobre o
Gabi will
valor
be
de
even stronger
solidariedade.
than mine, so I'll leave them for my message
Acreditamos muito como
is
igrejas
related to the
na
value of
solidariedade,
solidarity.
que por
We in
definição
our
é
the
aquilo que
church we
nos faz
believe in
sólidos, né?
solidarity, and
Solidariedade
so
e
that this
solidez é a
in
mesma
the word
palavra,
with solidarity we have the
porque
word
as
solid.
empresas podem
It was
ter
the
a
same. So
força do
that the
dinheiro ou da
companies
corrupção, mas a
have the
força da
strength of
nossa
their
união,
money or
a força
corruption,
da
but the strength
fraternidade e
of our
sororidade
union and of our
entre igrejas,
fraternity
irmãos e
and
irmãs,
our
inclusive entre
the
sul e
unity
norte,
and
global,
among the
é
churches,
maior,
amongst
porque tem um
brothers and
valor
sisters,
mais
it
profundo
is much
que não pode ser
stronger because it has
traído,
a
que não pode
deeper
ser
value
abandonado ou
that cannot
derrubado
be
nunca.
betrayed
Então,
and that cannot be
esta
abandoned, and
webinar,
that we can
esta
never
campanha
get
que
up, move
fizemos
out of
é
the way. So this
principalmente uma
type of
campanha
webinar,
para renovar
we understand what
a
we've
nossa
done as a
escolha de sermos
campaign to
solidários,
renew our
inclusive ao
choice
inverso
of
do
being
sul para o
of
norte,
solidarity and
sermos
others,
aliados, nós daqui
and,
com
and
vocês também em suas
and
causas.
so that we can create allies for our causes, our common causes.
Primeiro, agradecer pela oportunidade mais
First
uma
of all, I'd like
vez.
to
Eu acho que a
thank
mensagem
you
que eu deixo
once again for this
é,
opportunity. I think the message that I
é
would
dizer uma
like to
coisa, né?
leave you with
Nós falamos línguas
is to say
diferentes,
the
né?
following.
Somos pessoas diferentes,
We speak different
mas vivemos no
languages.
mesmo planeta,
We
né?
are different
Pisamos no
people,
mesmo
but we
chão,
live on the same planet.
bebemos da mesma água
We
potável,
walk on the
respiramos o
same
mesmo ar
ground.
limpo.
We drink the
Todos nós
same
precisamos disso,
water.
né? E
And
não
so
há como viver
we
sem
breathe the
isso.
same air. All of us
Então a
needs
gente tem que
these things.
entender que a
And there's
luta
no
da
other person
comunidade
way of living
da
so this, so
Gabi,
they
a
have to
luta da
understand
comunidade
that
Piquiá,
the struggle of the
também
communities in Gabi
dos,
and
dos que
the
estão aqui no
Pikia
webinar hoje,
community
né?
is
Então, a
also the
luta pela
struggle of
terra, a luta
all
pela
of those that are participating in this webinar. The struggle for peace, for the environment is our struggle because we are part of this earth. We live in it, on it. And this is the message I'd like to leave you all with.
A mensagem que eu deixo antes de deixar minha
The
mensagem,
message that I would like to leave you with is,
estivemos
first of
no
all, I
San
would
José dos
like to
Campos, né, onde nós tínhamos uma grande liderança
that
Ana
there's a lot of leadership and
durante todo o
participation.
período de encontro foi debatida uma fala dela que
And
nós
with all of this period of meetings, we debated
Então, assim,
our action and we
essa
keep
fala
repeating the words
nos diz que nós somos muitos,
so
que
that
nós
this
fazemos
situation
muitas
tells us that
leituras
there are a
aqui
number of
da
us
Terra, né, desse planeta que
and
nós vivemos, que
that
nós somos
we
ele,
do a lot of
mas
reading.
pouco
We
pisamos no
are the
chão e
planet,
sentimos.
but
Então,
but
com
few
essa
of very few of
frase,
us
né, mencionada por ela,
work with the
partilhar
ground
esse
and feel
universo
the ground in their
grande
hands,
que
and
nós
with
estamos,
this
que
sharing in this
eu
big
convido, né,
universe that
todos
we're all
esses
within.
participantes,
I
mas
would like to
também
invite you. I'd like to
a
invite
cada
all the
participante desse
participants,
que também mencione a outra pessoa que
but
conheça,
each
que
participant, that they be
faça
able to
essa leitura do
share
nosso
these words
planeta,
with
né?
other
Do
people
que
that they
somos,
know,
porque esse planeta
so
somos
that we
nós,
can have
né?
see
Então,
this new reading
sem
of our
esse planeta
planet,
não
of which
somos,
we
né?
are.
Isso
We are
um
without the
fato
planet, we wouldn't
certo.
exist.
Então, que nós possamos fazer
So
essa
this is a
leitura,
fact,
mas ter a
and
certeza
this
de
is
qual
something
chão estamos
that
pisando,
we have to
porque
see
o
that
chão do
be
meu
very,
território, eu
be very
sei
sure
qual
what
que eu piso,
ground we're
eu
walking. I know
sinto,
my
e
territory.
o que eu
I know what
sinto
land I'm
é a
I'm
terra
walking on.
que me
I
dá o
feel it,
chão
and what I
todos
feel
os dias, é
is
a
that the
terra que me
land that
cura
supports me and that
quando eu
gives
estou
me
em
my
algum tipo de
daily food,
enfermidade, né,
and that helps
espiritual ou alguma
have going
enfermidade, né,
to
física.
cure me
Então,
when
nós
I have
precisamos de
spiritual
fato
problems or even a
sentir
physical problem.
essa
So
terra
this is
para
what
a gente
we need
poder
to be able to
consolidar essa
feel the
luta,
earth,
né? E
to
aí
feel the land, so
sou
that we
muito
can
grata por estar
consolidate this struggle.
participando, né, desse webinar
I'm also
e
very grateful that being able to participate in this
estão
webinar.
junto conosco essa mensagem que veio
And
na
thank you
frente. Muito
for
obrigada,
being with us
Mayalène, viu?
and
Muito
continue
obrigada
sharing
mesmo a
our
todos.
message that comes out. Thank you,
Merci,
Mayalène.
merci
Thank you,
infiniment
all
à
of you,
toi
for the
d'avoir été avec
invitation.
nous aujourd'hui. C'était vraiment
Thank
merveilleux de
you, all
vous
of you, for
entendre, de
being
vous
with it. It
avoir
was
avec nous. Je vous
marvelous
remercie
to
de votre temps. Je vous
hear
remercie de
you
votre
and to
solidarité. Merci d'avoir été avec nous.
share with you.
Donc, on
Thank you for being
va
here. So
terminer le
we're
webinaire
going to
simplement en
end
vous
the
montrant toutes les
webinar
ressources qui sont
by showing you all
disponibles
of the resources
pour mener
that
la
are
campagne dans
available
votre
to
paroisse,
carry
dans
out
votre
the
école.
campaign in your parishes, in your
Donc,
schools, or in your region.
vous allez voir,
So you're
je
going
vais
to
juste laisser
see,
le temps à Richard de
I'll
remettre
leave
le
Richard to
PowerPoint.
put up the PowerPoint
Donc,
again.
nous avons plusieurs ressources qui sont
So
disponibles
we have a
pour
number of
commander. Donc, il est
resources
toujours
that
temps,
can be
il reste quelques
ordered. It's
jours, là, vous
still
pouvez toujours
time.
commander du
You have a
matériel pour
few
qu'il
more
arrive
days. You
avant le
can
5e
order up
dimanche, notre
before
dimanche
the
de
5th,
solidarité où on fait un
a
apéro-don à travers le Canada.
solidarity
Donc, vous allez pouvoir voir sur notre
Sunday,
site
where we
web
make
toutes les ressources qui
our
sont
appeal throughout Canada. You
imprimées.
can
On
see in
a
the
un
side
tableau
of
voisine, on a un
the
calendrier de
printed
solidarité qu'on fait en
resources. We have a
famille
solidarity
ou à
calendar,
l'école.
which you can
On a
put that
aussi toutes
together
sortes de
in
ressources
families
qui
or
sont
in the
en
schools, all
ligne.
kinds
Donc,
of
vous allez
resources
retrouver des
online.
messages pour les
You
bulletins
can send
paroissiaux, une
messages
application
for
pour parler de la campagne.
parish
On est en train
struggle to part the
aussi, tu peux
campaign.
continuer,
You
Richard,
can also see if you can
je vais parler des
move it
ah,
on.
voilà, c'est notre
If you
site
see,
Internet.
this is our
Donc, il y a
internet
différents
site,
onglets, les
and there are
ressources.
different
Vous avez
tabs,
le
and you
bon de
see different
commande.
resources.
Puis,
You
je
have
vais
the order
descendre un
form,
petit peu.
and if you go down a
Donc, tous
bit
les
more,
outils qu'on peut
you can
commander,
have
les
all
outils
the
qui sont
tools
disponibles en ligne pour
that
téléchargement.
can be ordered
On a
or those
aussi
that can be
quelques outils qui sont
downloaded,
disponibles en
and save a
espagnol
few that
pour
are
télécharger.
available in Spanish that you can
Et
look
puis,
for.
dans la section
And
accueil, vous allez avoir
finally,
plus
in the
d'informations
home
sur
section, you have
nos
more
vidéos, sur le
information on our
partenaire directeur.
videos
Et
about the partners per
je vais
se.
revenir au
And
PowerPoint,
I'd like
Richard.
to come back to the
Je vais vous
PowerPoint.
parler justement
I would just
des
like to
vidéos.
talk to you about the
D'ailleurs, vous pouvez vous
videos.
inscrire sur notre site Internet.
You
À chaque
can
semaine, une infolettre spéciale va
sign
être
up. There'll be
diffusée tous les vendredis
a
pour la
bulletin of
recevoir.
every
Donc, vous n'avez
Friday,
qu'à aller sur le
and
site
you can
Internet dans la
receive
campagne,
it.
tout en
But
bas,
you
il y
have
a la
to go
section
into
pour s'inscrire à
the part to
cette infolettre
register for
spéciale.
this
À chaque
special
semaine, une
bulletin.
réflexion va aussi être
And there'll
publiée,
be
une
a
réflexion hebdomadaire qui
reflection
s'inspire des
every
lectures
week
bibliques.
that's inspired on
Oui, tu vas trop vite.
biblical.
Donc, il
You're
y a des
going to
vidéos
read.
qui s'en viennent,
So there are
qui sont en train
videos that
d'être
will be
finalisées.
coming up
Vous
that are
allez avoir la
being
chance de voir beaucoup plus
finalized.
une minute
You'll
qui
be
est à peu
able to
près une
see
vidéo témoignage
about more
avec
than a
l'histoire
minute. It's
biblique de
done with all
Bajoget
the
de la communauté de
history
Dona Gabi.
of
Ça
Dona
va être
Gabi's
près
community,
dans
and
une ou
you'll
deux
also
semaines.
be
Et il
able
y
to
a
be
ces
done in
deux
1 or
vidéos
2
pour
weeks,
enfants qui
and there
s'appellent
are
Une
1 or
journée dans la vie
2
de, qui
that
mettront en
talk about
vedette
And so they put together Ayla, who is from Pica da Conquista, and Lara, who's from Francisco Romao community. So the two of them, we can see their daily life through these different videos. And so this will be something that will be available on the internet soon, and you can sign up for the weekly bulletin, which will be sent out and that's it. So if we can, and so we have the new podcast. If you didn't know, there's a new podcast. We had a podcast that does the solidarity strike, but now there's another one for children and balado, Explorateur. And then there's an episode that is in Colombia and also in Brazil with the links that we make to our campaign. So I invite you all to go discover this new balado. If you can change. So thank you. This is the end of our webinar. Before we leave, I would like to have one last prayer, which is our campaign prayer. And I don't know if Mike was with Padre Dario to be able to read the prayer. We're going to leave it in English and in French. Mike is here. Is Mike there?
Yes. Can you help me? Can you
Hi there.
send us hi, Mike? He's with Padre Dario.
I'll just begin.
Okay. Send us into prayer. Thanks.
The destruction of your creation, our common home, echoes in our hearts, the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Listening to this cry, we hear your call to ecological conversion. Turn us away from actions that harm our relationship to you, our planet, and our sisters and brothers. Turn towards the track for justice. Gather us as your church, north and south, to walk this track together. Let us be guardians of creation and not rivals for its spoils. May we encounter others on the way who seek ecological justice and join our efforts to their own. Guide us together towards the dream of our human family living on a healthy planet in dignity, solidarity, justice, and peace.
Amen. Donc, merci tout le monde d'avoir été des nôtres aujourd'hui. On espère que vous
Thank
allez
you
tous
everyone for
écouter
being
nous
here
joindre à cette
today. We
merveilleuse
hope that
campagne
you will
et restez à
all
l'affût
join
pour
this
toutes
wonderful
les nouvelles vidéos et le
campaign
matériel qui va venir. Encore une fois,
watch
merci à
out
nos
for the new
invités
material
spéciaux
that will
d'aujourd'hui.
be
C'était un grand bonheur
sent out. Thanks
de
to
vous
our
avoir avec nous
guests. It
aujourd'hui.
was
Et je vous
wonderful
souhaite
to
à
have
toutes
you
et
with
tous
us
une bonne fin
today,
de
and
journée.
I wish
Merci
you all
d'avoir
a
été avec nous.
great afternoon.
Au
Thanks for
revoir.
being with us.